Thanks,
All right,
Barry.
Rob, the Knicks, do you know what it is? I said they've done something we didn't really think we'd see again.
It's called playing D. Yes, playing D. D and up.
Well, and people, Rob, we know it. A lot of people say you can't play defense anymore. Well, Tom Thibodeau, who is known as a great defensive coach, wasn't that way in Minnesota for him, but elsewhere, Chicago and now with the Knicks, that's been the case. And the Knicks, Rob, became the first team in 12 years, since 2012, to hold three straight opponents under 70 points. And they didn't win all those games. They're only 2-1. And in fairness,
under 80 points, Chris.
I'm sorry, did I say 70? Under 80 points. Under 80 points, my bad. They beat Orlando. That's a good win. Orlando's like the 5th seed in the East. Then they lost to Philadelphia. Of course, no Joel Embiid, so that's kind of ridiculous. And then they beat Philadelphia. And so give them credit, Rob. And the story here is OG Anunoby. And I remember when they made this trade and they gave up R.J. Barrett and Emmanuel quickly, and I think a draft pick or two. And I thought, look, I like Anunoby, but I thought that was a lot. I thought it was too much because I was like Anunoby, Barrett, very similar. I mean, as far as level and quality of player.
Right.
But Anunoby, Rob's been just what the doctor ordered for the Knicks. Rob, they are 13-2 in the 15 games he's played. And he has a plus minus in his 528 minutes with the Knicks of plus 282. It's ridiculous.
And you know what's crazy, Chris? Even with all of that, I still don't think they get out of the second round. I mean, that's the part that would have to be disheartening if you're the Knicks. Like, you have this team that's playing well. We just talked about the defensive stuff. And, you made a trade that worked out. You got a good coach, all these other things. And yet, do you really feel like they're going to take that next step? I'm not convinced of it, of the other 4 teams or the other 3 teams that they'd have to play, that they're going to make that next step. I think where they are is the hard part of being a fan. You know what I mean?
I think what it is, Rob, this is Tom Thibodeau. He maximizes the talent that he has during the regular season.
But he wears out his welcome after a while, doesn't he?
Well, he's been here now for a few years. I mean, he's hard. Normally. He works the players hard.
Yeah.
And what happens is I think they play at essentially a playoff level intensity throughout the regular season. And I'm not saying other teams don't play hard, but the Knicks kind of play at their absolute hardest, and he's on them so hard that they play at that level, and that they end up winning a lot of regular season games. And then come playoff time, the more talented teams, Rob, take it to another level, and they can't compete. We saw it with Thibodeau's best years with the Bulls. Now, Joakim Noah, Luau Dang, Carlos Boozer, those are good players. Derrick Rose was a superstar. And during the regular season, they were great. And then the Miami Heat with LeBron and D-Wade and Bosh beat them 4-1 in the playoffs. Like, that's an example of what I'm talking about. You can't blame Thibodeau because he just had them overachieving. And, Rob, I look at this team, and it's not as good as that Bulls team was because those 3 players I named were better than better than the Knicks supporting cast of Jalen Brunson, although Julius Randle is made 3 All-Star teams. But this is similar to me, Rob. It is a bunch of grinders, a bunch of hard-working players that'll defend, and Jalen Brunson is the star. And it all revolves around him. He makes it work.
Is he really, Is he really the star?
He's not as good as Derrick Rose.
Or he's the de facto star because they don't have a star?
Well, I think he's a lower-tier star. He's not a superstar, obviously. He made his first All-Star team this year. I guess that remains to be seen, Rob. Does he continue to play like this for the next 5 years?
I'm not knocking his play.
I hear
do you
you.
know what I mean?
I hear you.
Like, there are guys who are stars because they're the best player on that group. But are they really
give him
a
this?
Star?
They are winning. So he's their star, and they're winning. Now they're not go out to win a championship, but it's not like, and this guy is somewhat of a star, but it's not like Trae Young, right? Where Trae's put up these numbers, but they're the 10th seed. He's putting up, or LaMelo Ball, or, with Charlotte, which is terrible. So he's putting up numbers in a winning situation. So you got to give him some credit for that. Second round, their absolute ceiling would be the conference finals. And that would be a surprise because Boston and Milwaukee, and for all Milwaukee's struggles, and they, we talked about it, Rob. Doc Rivers seemed like he had them, playing well for a hot minute, right? They came out of All-Star break. They won 6 straight games. It was like, okay. Now they've lost 3 of their last 4. Granted, a West Coast swing, but Rob, it was oogly. Golden State obviously pounded them by 35 points. The Lakers beat them by a point, sans without, for those that don't know French like me, sans LeBron James. They beat them by a point, the Lakers. And then they come back, the Bucks, and get a win over the Clippers. And then that Clippers game, I don't believe Kawhi and Paul George sat out. And so they get that win. And then, Rob, last night, the Bucks get pounded by Sacramento. So
I was surprised at that score.
Yeah, I was. Too.
Sacramento.
It was
Remember
30,
Sacramento?
37 points?
I think Sacramento last
points?
night, Chris, was getting 3.5 points. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And it went by 37.
35. But, so, Rob, I still think Milwaukee and the Celtics are a tick better, a tier above the Knicks. Now, if the Knicks can pull off an upset, say of the Bucks, I don't see it coming, but then, maybe they could get to the conference finals and get beat. But I agree with you. They won't get past the second round. Last year, remember they showed some heart and they beat Cleveland.
Yeah, if they do, Chris, then they're taking that step. Then it's
season.
It's a great
well,
season. And
would you say, let's say they do get to the conference finals and lose to the Celtics in 6. Do you think they've taken that next step, or you think it's just, we saw Atlanta get to the conference finals, right?
Yeah, we always say it, though, is they took the step, but you have to do it again. You know what I mean?
And I think they still need to add, you know what I mean? They need something.
But they would have to do it again for you to believe like they really turned the corner.
Right. Atlanta didn't do it again, so you're like, okay, that's what they were. But yeah, Rob, I do think, and I don't think this team's going to win a championship, but we said it, they'd have to do it kind of like that Detroit team in 2004, where it's just a bunch of good players and they get it done. But I don't think their players aren't as good as those Detroit guys were. Chauncey Billups was a high lottery pick. Rasheed Wallace was a high lottery pick. Rip Hamilton, I think, wasn't he a lottery pick too? Lower lottery, but
yeah, I think so.
So they had real talent that hadn't matured.
They hadn't panned out where they were drafted.
Right.
But they were definitely, there was
all those guys were superstars in college, big names.